In this video, we will talk about GameStop, the phenomenon, the brokers, the scandals around it, and what does it mean for us, the traders. It took me a long time to finally decide to talk about this topic because on one hand, it felt great, to have the feeling that you count in a history in making. But at the same time, I also feel like the obvious has been in front of us since the beginning. Many people find that this story is very binary, meaning you're part of a phenomenon that's going to change things for the better. And on the other hand, you also have many people who think that those who got in GameStop were either one, scammers, and two, people who got scammed. I think that it's actually both. So let's split this discussion into several parts. The company itself, the phenomenon, the brokers behind it, and us, the investors or the traders. So just quickly about the store. I actually went to a few GameStops before, and the first thing that pop up in my mind whenever you say GameStop at any moment after, I would say 2015, is how come this store is still up and running? Because I haven't bought any game from either GameStop or even EB Games, for those of you who know what it is, for almost like 10 years at this point. Every single game that I've played since 2010, most likely, have been bought online via Steam or the Blizzard's online store. The only time that I want to go to a GameStop is, let's say I'm in a shopping mall, and in that case, I would go to either a Best Buy or a GameStop, just to kill some time, probably. When the pandemic first hit and the lockdowns started to be imposed in many cities, my reaction, just like many other people's reactions, regarding GameStop was it would be a miracle if they can survive the crisis at all, because their revenue and profit has been dwindling for years. So this could be like the final strike that will just bring them to bankruptcy, potentially. And then there were two phenomenons that, in my opinion, were significant. The first one was when Dr. Brewery decided to enter into the stock, and he said that there was something amazing about the company that we didn't see, or that there was a lot of fake news around in order to bring down this company. Well, I think that there may be some fake news circulated by the big fish in order to bring down the stock. However, the fundamentals never looked that great. Like, we can say all we want about how much we love this company, but I think it's just a fact to state that in today's world, fewer and fewer people buy their games at GameStop. Now, GameStop has been trying to morph from a retailer to like a venue. If there's an esport event or a tournament or something like this. But so far, I don't think that this really panned out. So I can't really comment about if this is the right direction to take. Arguably, we can say that it's going to cost less because they will mostly be hosting events and collecting fees for those events. So this would be an open discussion, and I think that it's simply too soon to talk about it. But my point is, I never really either thought much or thought anything that's very positive or bullish about GameStop. I certainly don't think that they deserve the hedge funds naked shorting it. And I think that this is something that people should condemn, and if we can do anything about it, to do something about it. Now let's talk about the phenomenon itself. So it's funny because when I first heard about the whole thing with GameStop, Wall Street bets, and so on, it was like 24 hours after the event itself. So by that point, the stock price was already kind of correcting, and it seemed like it's going to correct hard. A lot of people on YouTube, on Reddit, and on social media platforms started to say, you know what, this is maybe the beginning of the end. We are going to take it on the big hedge funds and so on. And yeah, for that moment, I felt the euphoria. I felt the momentum that was pushing people to say or to do these kinds of things. And yes, it felt great. It even felt greater because despite what many skeptics will say, I am fairly certain that this actually hurt the hedge funds, for their exposure that they actually had in GameStop. So this short squeeze likely cost billions to the short sellers and maybe tens of billions, depending on how many hedge funds were into this. But one thing that I know is that apparently Citadel had to bail Melvin out with $2.9 billion or something like this. So in this regard, I think it's great. And it should teach some sort of a lesson that says it's not because the big fish are big that they get to do whatever they want. There can be random, erratic phenomenons, such as what happened with GameStop, that should have them restructure or rethink how they want to make money, how they want to trade. Now, the other thing that many people have pointed out is that it's potentially illegal. This is, in my opinion, going to be a technical debate, and frankly, I will not get into it too much, simply because it would be difficult for the court to go sue everybody who sold their GameStop shares at some point. And it's going to be tricky to be able to prove that many people were in some sort of conspiracy to drive the stock up and the pump and dump. I think that this would be very difficult to, especially considering that some of those people may have been long-time shareholders and they saw the price exploding and they just decided to sell it. So the event itself, I think that it's going to leave some positive results down the road. Let's also talk about the brokers. I think that through this event, some masks fall off. The biggest one is probably Robinhood. You know, if they pretend that they are robbing the rich to feed to the poor, I think it's pretty much the opposite. And something to realize is that in terms of the reason why the brokers decided to restrict trading for GME, there are two main ones, in my opinion. The first one is a liquidity issue, and the second one is probably because they want to serve, quote unquote, their customers. Be careful with the word customer, because logic would say, whoa, the customer is me, right? The meatbag who's trading in front of his computer screens with a balance of maybe $500 to $20,000. Robinhood is free for traders. Of course, there's the spread and so on, but there's no commission. I think that when they say their customers, it really means who they sell the order flows to. And in this case, probably Citadel. So when the CEO, I don't even remember what his name is, he just looks like one of those Silicon Valley kids who think that they were really cool when they're really not, and completely butchered his interviews on either CNBC or other platforms. It sounded fake. It sounded like something that a PR guru told him to say in order to limit the damage. But apart from this, it also suggests that maybe it's time to move on from Robinhood. Because imagine this, if your broker can restrict the flow of buy and sell orders, what does it say about the other kinds of restrictions that this broker can impose on you? My biggest nightmare has been unable to withdraw my money from my broker. This has not happened, of course, but my point is the trust between you and your broker can sometimes be very thin or blurry. Anything that suggests that your broker can have some sort of backdoor access to your account is, in my opinion, something that should kill their entire integrity or their reputation. My feeling is they may not survive 2021 or 2022 if the current trend continues. Either way, I think that the brokers, especially the ones that a lot of retail traders have been using, will be the big losers in the whole thing. It's not necessarily going to be the hedge funds, but their underlings, the people who feed data to those hedge funds. Now, let's talk about the third element in this, the investors, you, us. I think that what this says is that a significant percentage of the investors, like the retail investors who are present online, seem to be new investors. Like they have been around the block for less than 2 or 3 years, and they still think that the more you trade, the more money you will make. I've been trading on and off since 2011, and yes, I got that feeling a lot. I also had this habit of checking my phone when I wake up in the middle of the night to see what is my balance. I used to trade Forex. So it was 24 hours from Monday to Friday. And another thing that I tended to do was to put all my money in 1 or 2 positions, because I think that the more I put in, the more I can win. But what I didn't see was the more I put in, the more I can also potentially lose. And sometimes the losses will literally cripple your account. Like, there can be losses that you will never get back from. And a lot of those people, deep inside, they know that they shouldn't be listening to people on Reddit, or they shouldn't be putting their faith into people that they don't know on a random forum that says this stock is going to shoot up to the moon. But a lot of people want to believe this. And sometimes their hands just refuse to obey to their mind. And then the next thing you know, I don't know if anyone remembers this, Genius Prince? Does anyone still remember Genius Prince? I remember a lot of people were like, this stock is going to the moon. Let's buy it when it was around $5 or $6. And no, the next thing you know, the stock went back to $1. Something else that comes to mind was I covered a stock called Bionanogenomics. And a lot of people were like, why isn't ARK buying it? ARK will buy it anytime soon. This is why we're buying it as well. I think that ARK never bought it because they think that the price is no longer good enough. And also, I remember I covered a stock called Bionanogenomics. A lot of people were saying in my comments that, oh yeah, ARK will buy for sure. They have to, because I'm putting all my money in it, assuming that they will. Today, they have yet to do it. And I think that this kind of mentality will ultimately drive a lot of people's portfolios to zero. If you want to make money in the stock market, you have to start thinking about the whole thing as in you are trying to make money while also trying not to lose too much. The online forums can be a good place to exchange ideas, to see if there are any contrarian points of views, but it's definitely not a good place to start following others, even if when the things that they say become the truth. Because guess what? Sometimes they're not. And when they're not, you are the person holding the bag. Like, for example, let's say you saw a video on YouTube that says, this stock made 10x, made 50x, made 5,000x. Buy now, with big exclamation marks. Well, if your first reaction is to jump on the opportunity and to buy 50% of your portfolio in this penny stock, then it's only a matter of time before your account will get completely blown up. And it's not necessarily the other person's fault, because maybe the YouTuber who told you to buy it has like 0.5% of their portfolio on it. That's also something to keep in mind. For almost every one of my recent videos, I usually mention what do institutional investors do for those stocks. And one thing that's kind of interesting is that for most of those stocks, institutional investors put in at most 1% of their portfolio on it. For most of them, of course. Like the BlackRock, the Vanguard, the Goldman Sachs, the UBS of this world. So I think that this would be a good place to learn. You have to trade a bit like institutions, meaning when you buy a stock, when you sell a stock, when you have gains, when you have losses, first of all, you feel nothing. You don't feel good or bad, you feel nothing. And 2, you diversify your portfolio. You never put in, regardless how good you think this company is, you never put in more than 5% in any single one of them, or 10, depending on your risk tolerance. So I think that for the investors, the GameStop episode has been both great, but also a warning that in a revolution, some may die. Not you, but maybe your portfolio. I have seen people who, after they bought GameStop shares, they decided to hold it, and now they're living in their cars. I'm sure that you can find this post somewhere on Wall Street Bets Elite or something like this. So this is what I think about the whole GameStop episode. Going forward, I hope that people who are interested in trading stocks are more careful about who to listen and when to stop believing your surrounding opinions. So usually I will have like a recommendation section for any stock that I cover. For this one, I think that it's going to be fairly quick. For people with normal risk appetite or below, the answer is to stay away from it. I don't think that you will have the stomach and, more importantly, the portfolio in order to tolerate the kind of risk. But for people with very high risk tolerance, by that I mean your entire portfolio is almost like all penny stocks. In your case, I would say that a good entry point can be in the upcoming weeks, because it's when everyone starts to give up about the GameStop shares. Because I think that when the hype slowly dies down, this is a good time to buy the shares. If we look at what happened with Genius Brands, at the lowest, they fell to like $1, but now they're like slowly climbing back. And this may also happen with GameStop. I certainly hope it does. Thank you very much for watching. If you like my content, please like, comment, and subscribe.